So I did a 20-minute podcast in a car talking about Phoenix. It's up on the Patreon. I went on a bit of a rant. The problem is I don't know where I stand on the situation, because I kind of understand where AEW is coming from on their side. So if you guys are, living under a rock, Phoenix is trying like hell to get out of his contract, and he is willing to burn it to the ground in order to do that. Apparently, AEW still has a year's worth of dates left on his deal, because while the time limit expired, they tacked on injury time, which is something that WWE's been doing for a long time, which I think we've all been pretty critical of WWE for doing in the past, right? They did it to several people, and we were pretty critical of them for doing that. Now AEW is doing it. TNA has done it to people. They did it to Josh Alexander. They did it to several other people. So this is not a singular company thing. So I get that. But they got this guy who's miserable. He wants to go to WWE with his brother, and out of spite, they're holding him to the contract. They're going to pay him a lot of money. So Phoenix, I don't really think this is inhumane treatment to get paid a lot of money to sit at home and you're able to go work indies whenever you want. So I think inhumane is probably not the way to describe it. But I also see Phoenix's side. Like, he wants out of his deal, and I do think that there should be some language in the contract where they should be able to come up to an amicable solution for both sides to part ways, especially with this injury time. But that's just not the way the deals work. And I think if Tony doesn't hold him to the deals, then WWE is going to continue to get in his talent's ear to get them to get out of their deals. So it's like fucking damned if you do, damned if you don't.
I have zero sympathy for Phoenix on this, mainly because Conan is his agent, right? Conan is a guy. Here's why I hate Conan. Conan, the AAA, was hooked up with Tony from the beginning, and Conan made appearances on the show. Tony sent talent always to AAA shows. They sent them Kenny Omega. They sent them Andrade when he was there. Tony did a lot to help AAA, and all Conan did was he got on his dipshit podcast with Disco Dipfuck Space Inferno and bury them constantly. And Tony never said a bad word about him. Never. Tony never shit on Conan publicly until Conan pulled the bullshit with FTR, Dragon Lee, and Drilistico, right? Where they had Dragon Lee I think it was Dash, win the titles, and they immediately said, oh, Dragon Lee's going to WWE. Yep. Dragon Lee's going to WWE. And Conan thought it was hilarious, right? And then Tony said, fuck you, and started working with CMLL. And then Conan, one more time, hey, you listen to my podcast? Yeah, I did. And I heard you say that what goes around comes around. And he said it 3 times. What goes around comes around. What goes around comes around. So he manipulated his clients, Phoenix and Pentagon, to WWE, right? Well, because they're associated with Conan, what went around came around, right? In life, you are the people that you are associated with. And those guys chose to associate with a bad business partner. Like Conan constantly shit on them, despite the fact that Tony was helping his company for years. Kenny Omega drew big houses there, and Conan would go on his dumbass podcast, Keeping It 100, and would shit on their show all the time, his business partner. And I'm supposed to feel bad for people that are associated with this guy that was fucking over his business partner the entire time. I have zero sympathy. Wait a year. Wait a year. Get paid for a year, because Phoenix gets hurt all the time anyway. So you might as well give him a year to heal up. I have none. I have no sympathy for Phoenix on this because of Conan.
I completely agree with you. And not only that, like, they were openly negotiating. It was an open secret that they were negotiating with WWE while they were under contract with AEW, which is a complete no-no. If you're going to negotiate with them, keep it to yourself. That happens all the time. Nobody leaves one company by their own free will if they don't have another gig ready to go. I retired from the military just now, and the only reason I did is because I had another gig to go to. Like, that's a smart way to do it. But what I didn't do is go telling everybody that I was talking with another company, right? Because I didn't want to jinx it. Like, Air Force wouldn't care. They would be happy for me. But when you're like, it goes the same way it goes for sports. Like, you're not going to be a linebacker on this team. Like, say you're a linebacker for the Jags. You're not going to openly like have an open secret out there that you're negotiating with another team when they still own your rights. They're like, you're losing leverage at that point. And that's exactly what happened to these guys. And then they tried to go back on it and say that we're happy in AEW. It's like, no, the cat's out of the bag. Like, you have too many friends with too big a mouth that spilled the beans on this deal. And so that's why this is happening to them, right? Now, I get the feeling that if you were a good actor and Tony really liked you, you might be able to work a deal to get out of your contract. I think that's what happened with Cody Rhodes, right? Like they worked out a deal and he ended up going over to WWE.
Can I throw another one at you?
Go ahead.
Andrade. Andrade got himself. Andrade bitched and bitched and bitched. And he punched Sammy Guevara, which is a great idea. Everybody should do it with themselves at least once in their life. Everybody should punch Sammy Guevara. He got suspended, came back, and was a model employee. Didn't bitch. Worked a lot on TV. Was in the first Continental Classic. Had a bunch of good matches, and then left.
Mm-hmm.
And then left without like they came to a deal. Tony said, "I'll let you go, but I'm going to use you on TV. I just want you to be a model employee." Andrade said, "Okay," and then he was fine on the way out, and there was no bad blood between them. And Andrade's still the speed champion. I mean, he's getting pushed heavily in WWE, right?
I don't know. I watched Saturday night's main event last night. Because they had Jesse Ventura on there. I was like, okay, I got to see what this is like. It was actually pretty cool. I actually really enjoyed it. It was an easy show to watch, especially if you skip the Liv Morgan match, which is what I did because I'm a genius. I'm not watching that. So, I thought it was a pretty fun show, and so I did put Saturday night's main event in the tagline because I was gonna talk about it. So he wasn't on it. I watched Survivor Series. He wasn't on that either, as far as I can remember. I didn't watch everything on Survivor Series. I think that Andrade is just kind of a guy they like to bring to TV, which is the exact same role that he had in AEW. Wouldn't get any pay-per-view matches there either, so it was kind of a lateral move for him. But with Phoenix and Pentagon, now you got Pentagon out there. He's a complete free agent, and I don't think WWE wants him unless he's with Phoenix. Like we talked about the Brainbusters earlier. I think that's a similar situation where they look at Pentagon, who I think is of the two is probably the most charismatic by far. Phoenix is the better in-ring competitor, but I think Pentagon would line up with what WWE likes. I think he would probably get a little bit of a push there if they want to give him a chance, but I think they wanted him as a tag team. And now he's just going to be doing stuff on his own. The good news is, TNA fans in the chat, I think these guys might continue to talk themselves out of a WWE deal and be stuck in TNA, and that's really good for my podcast. So I'm happy about that.
It's entirely possible. Like, because that's what I think Tony talked about fighting back a couple of years ago. Like, it was pretty immature the way he said it. But I mean, this is kind of how business is. This is how Vince would do things. This is how wrestling has always been. And I don't believe that any business is moral, right? I think all businesses in general are immoral. So I can't fault them, especially when you have guys like Conan, bad faith actors who are very much self-absorbed, who take advantage of their friendships and blow them into something that they're not. AAA is a god-awful promotion. Conan's a terrible booker, and he's not a great agent, as it turns out.
He routinely gives people bad advice. Him and Magnum TA should no longer be giving advice, especially because the Lucha Brothers really look up to him because he literally discovered them when they were children. Mm-hmm. They were out front in Mexico City, like outside of a wrestling show, practicing their moves in the streets, and that's where he kind of like recruited them. At least that's the legend that was being told. I don't know if that's true or not.
Conan's full of shit, so who knows?
Yeah, but he has really guided their career since they were children, and they've been pretty successful. They completely screwed the pooch on this one. They totally screwed this one up because they would still be on TV right now, being pushed. Not the top tag team, but they'd be pushed. They'd be having some pretty good matches, and then they could probably go out of the company with dignity. But now they got some stank on them, and I'm like, if you're WWE and you're watching how they're behaving, trying to get out of their deals there, you're like, I think they would do the same thing to us. Do I want to bring these people in?
Yeah, I would not. If I had a business, I would not do business with Conan.
Yeah,
I just wouldn't. I don't think he's someone you can trust. I don't think he's a good faith actor. I really don't. Like, there's a reason why when the Radicals thing shook down, they didn't touch Conan because Conan fucked him over on the Max Moon thing. They spent $100,000 on that Max Moon outfit, and Conan bounced.
Yeah,
to Paul Diamond, and it didn't work. Right? I'm not saying it was a great gimmick, but here's why when all those guys left WCW, Conan didn't go with because Vince said, "I don't want him."
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't live up to his word back then, and that was a gimmick that he created.
Yep,
he created the gimmick. He got them to buy all the gear, and he just no-showed the whole deal. And they gave the gimmick to
Ghosted him.
Paul Diamond, and it didn't. Now I don't think anybody wearing that gimmick it was going to work. I think it was dead on arrival.
No, but they still spent a ton of money on it, and he still just
Yeah.
ghosted him. This is why they didn't bring him in. They didn't bring him in when the Radicals thing shook down. They didn't bring him in when WCW closed in 2001, and they brought everybody in, not Conan.
Yeah. Yeah. Conan was in TNA, and surprise, surprise, he ends up suing TNA. he left there, and then it took forever, but TNA being TNA, they ended up bringing him back. I think in like 2017 or something like that. Jarrett brought him back. So
See the beginning of the show. Like that's just
yeah.
what TNA does. But no,
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I don't feel bad for Phoenix because I think he took some bad advice. I'm not saying he should have stayed with AEW. I'm not saying if you're not happy with it, but there's a way to leave the company. And I get the fuck out of here. What I'm about to say, but Andrade was a great example of how you leave this place.
Yeah. I think Miro he's not doing anything publicly, but he is obviously leaking to the media that he's trying to get out of his deal. But he hasn't really done anything public to like embarrass himself or anybody else, which is what the Lucha Brothers are doing. So I hope that him and Tony Khan can find an amicable way for him to get out of that contract. I do think that pro wrestlers need to protect themselves a little bit better with the language in the contracts. I understand the importance, like we're in a capitalistic society, right? And the employers are always going to have the leverage. They're not going to bring somebody in unless they get the leverage, unless like you're just absolutely worth it. Like if you're Hulk Hogan, they're going to give you all the leverage in the world just to bless your company with your presence, right? But if you're a lower level guy, I would at least try to get some language in the contract where if there's injury time added, which is only exists in pro wrestling, it doesn't exist in any other pro sport, only exists in pro wrestling. If you're getting injury time added, you should be able to like have a negotiation window where that can be reduced, or you can get out of the contract, altogether. Or if there's like a way like, hey, look, I don't really want to be here. I'm not happy anymore. I don't like the creative. You're not going to push me the way I want. I'd like to just go be on my own. There's got to be a way to negotiate to get out of that deal. There's got to be some type of language in the contract. Now, I don't know what that looks like. I am not a contract lawyer. I did take a class for, dealing with contract management. I have hired people on contracts in the military before, but they were able to give us like notice. Like they could just like give us 30 days notice and you just let them out of their deal. Like that was not a big deal. So something's got to happen to where these wrestlers can get out of the contracts, because I think it's kind of obscene right now. Phoenix aside, I think just overall that there's got to be some, like, I know we're never going to get a union, but wrestlers need to figure out a way to get better contracts.
I don't disagree with that one, but I just I don't know. I don't know what the solution is right now. I think I have a conspiracy theory. I think Miro's doing this on purpose because he knows he can't really go back to WWE, but he doesn't really want to be in AEW either. So if he bitches publicly, they'll just keep him around so he can't be somewhere else, and he keeps getting paid. That's my Miro conspiracy theory right now.
If that conspiracy theory is true, Miro is the greatest wrestler of all time.
Greatest worker in history.
He is a complete genius. There's some people are saying that because Camille kind of did an interview and said that she has a lot more to offer AEW, and now people are saying that AEW is never going to bring her back to TV. Because she isn't what they want, right? That's just not her. She's a power move, like lanky power move beast of a wrestler. She's not going to do what AEW does, and so they didn't really lean into her strengths, and they kind of put her in a position to make her look bad. So they're probably never going to bring her on. But now it looks like, I don't think she was like complaining, but people took snippets of an interview and made it seem like she was complaining. And if Tony sees that, he's probably just going to make her sit and just pay her for 3 years. And if so, kudos to you too, Camille. Get paid.
Why do people, like, we've seen time and again, remember Brian Cage is the best example. Brian Cage's wife went and bitched, and Brian Cage spent like 2 years in purgatory, but he's still there and still getting paid because he himself didn't complain, but he's still there. He's got a job, but Tony Khan because again, I talked about insecurity. Tony Khan very much does not like when people go on public forums and complain about his company if you're employed by the company. And I kind of get that. If you're working for, I don't know, like a big major bank corporation, and you do a public corporate, you do an interview where you bury said corporation, they're not going to look kindly upon you. I bring that up for no reason.
Honestly, I don't know if you were working for a major bank. I don't know why you would complain. I think that's a great business to get into, to be honest with you.
See that, and that's how you answer that. That's how you answer that question. It's not that hard. Like I'm very happy with my job.
Yeah.
I would love to do. Of course, I want to do more. I'm hungry. I really want to be the best that I can be. I love going to work every day, and I just want to show what I can do. And I'm so excited with all these ideas. It's not hard, man. You're a fucking wrestler. You're a liar. You're a professional liar. Just do it.
Yeah. And be a professional. Like
Yeah.
shitting on your employer does not help you with future employers.
No.
I can
It
assure you of that.
it
I
burns
have
a bridge.
Dude, I interviewed somebody for a contractor position one time, right? Not a contract. This would have been a military. They would have been a federal employee, so not even on a contract. They would have been a federal employee. And I interviewed them, and they came in. And I talk about like strengths and weaknesses, which is like a typical question you ask on an interview. So, well, what are your strengths? And they had some pretty good strengths. And like, well, what are your weaknesses? They go, oh, well, sometimes my mouth just gets me into trouble. And I was like, huh, okay. I was like, then I looked down and see her the last employer. Was like, okay, well, I saw that you were working here as a secretary. What was it like there, and why did you decide to leave? And she just completely buried the whole operation. And I was like, I'm not going to hire you. So after the interview was over, I had to tell this person immediately because she was prior military. So she's like enlisted person. So she's one of us, right? So I got to take care of her as like being a senior veteran here. So I pulled her to the side and was like, hey, you're going to get another job interview one day because you're in the system. Don't ever say this again, and never speak badly about your previous employer, even if it's the truth. At least wait till you get through the door, right? Don't do it on an interview burying your previous employer, because I'm going to think you're going to do that to me. So I can't hire you as my secretary. That's not my personal secretary, the secretary for my office, right? Like that was going to be her job. And she ended up getting interviewed again like 4 months later, used my advice, got hired on the spot, was like the number one hiree, and is still working in that clinic to this day, because you just don't do that. You don't bury your current employer when you're looking for your next job. You never do that.
Nope. Because who wants that? Like, be smart. Like, I guess a lot of times wrestlers never have real jobs in their life, so they don't know how to do this. I buried Effie, and it seemed like AEW and GCW found a way to make that whole thing work. So,
yeah. Oh, we should talk about that. So Jericho was on GCW over the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, he went and attacked Mid Cardona and Effie, and it looks like they're going to do some business.
Kudos to them. Like they clearly things weren't going well between them. Effie said some stupid shit, and Tony actually showed some, humility for a change. Yeah. So good for them for figuring things out. I spent a lot of time burying Tony on the show, but he actually did what I said he didn't do earlier. So there's room. I still think Effie is a complete idiot. Like, again, you don't bury potential employers on the internet for no reason. He actually did an interview saying, I am so stupid. Like, and I respect for that, for a guy pointing out his own faults and being dumb.
Yeah.
And eating a little crow publicly.
Yeah, but he also blamed it on being gay, and I was just like, no, you don't get to do that.
I thought he said he could blame it on being gay, but didn't. I thought he was like, well, this is how the gay community is we're bitchy, and like, I forget that normal people aren't like, or regular people aren't like that. So that's how I interpreted that. But maybe
the way I interpreted it, maybe I'm wrong, and so if I'm wrong, I do apologize. But I took it as like he was like, well, he was making it as he was using it as an excuse. Well, in the gay community, this is how we are. And that's why I was being the way that I was. It's like, no, you don't get to do that, because I work with tons of gay people, and they're not like that. So they're professionals, right?
Well, he's not a professional though. He's a wrestler. True. Like, he works for GCW. So I mean, like, but at the same time, I'll give him credit for kind of eating a little bit of crow publicly, and it seems like they're going to do some business off it. So good for them. I like seeing that. I think AEW needs to be back in a spot where they are more friendly to the indies, because I think that helped them more than it hurt them. And I do think they're better. They're better for pro wrestling landscape than WWE is, because WWE just historically just mauls down everything in their pathways. Right. Historically, but kudos.
So you're a Ring of Honor guy. rank Jericho versus Cardona against CM Punk versus Samoa Joe, Samoa Joe versus Kenta Kobashi. Like we're in Final Battle. We're in Ring of Honor history. Would this one rank? You think?
This would be at the bottom.
Yeah. What are they thinking? Like that does not that is a WWE match from 2016 that I don't think anybody really wants to see. Now I'm not saying that they're not telling a good story. I think actually like they're doing a decent job of getting Cardona over and incorporating GCW, but that's not a match that's a Ring of Honor championship match. Like that's like kind of embarrassed for Ring of Honor.
I think they're just trying to sell some pay-per-views to some of the hardcore fans that pay attention to the internet, because I think they've kind of realized their AEW fan base doesn't give a shit. So they're trying to reach the people who would buy GCW pay-per-views and stuff to buy it. I don't know if it's the move. I have no idea. Like, I don't know. I keep hearing Ring of Honor is going to get a TV deal. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. I don't know, man. I mean, like, it does nothing for me. Nothing.
There's no demand for it. That's what I think about. That's what I think about TNA too. Everyone's like, TNA is going to get a new TV deal, and I'm just like, I don't see the demand for it. There's already so much pro wrestling on television already. Rampage got canceled, right? So I think the demand is for less wrestling on television. To be honest with you,
I think we've peaked. I think we've hit the peak. I think I've mentioned this. I think I mentioned this before. Like, the kids in my class, this is kind of my barometer, are kind of over WWE.
Yeah.
Right. They're like, oh, we'll watch the big shows. We don't watch Raw every week anymore. And I was kind of like, I don't know if that's good. Because that was my key when these guys were freshmen, that I'm like, oh, wrestling's picking up again. Now that they're seniors, it's kind of, that was old. So I don't know if it's, and you look at some of the stuff, like some of the attendances seem to be trending down a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. So I do think we've passed the peak.
Yeah, I agree. The last thing wrestling fans need is more wrestling on television. So, yeah, I don't have time either. I watch Dynamite every week and I watch Impact, and that's because Impact feeds my podcast, right? And that's kind of what's keeping the network, like Dynamite and Impact, are really the two shows that if we keep watching, we're still staying plugged in, right? I will watch a WWE show over the weekend and try to do a podcast about it, and none of my goddamn Patreon subscribers will even listen to it. They don't care about WWE. So they only want to hear something about AEW and Impact.
That's not our fan base. Like, and every time we post some WWE stuff, we get some randoms in the YouTube page that like get mad that we're not WWE fans. So I mean, like, it's just there's a million WWE podcasts out there, and that's just not us. That's really not our network, to be honest with you. Like, no one at Voices of Wrestling really cares about WWE. The closest, honestly, the one who cares the most about WWE is probably Joe.
Yeah, he watches all the shows. They go live. They went live after Saturday night's main event last night on the flagship. So if you want your WWE content, that's where to go. All right, hey, we're gonna skedaddle. I'm getting the hook here, but I do have Antonio Baker has a good question for JD. Because the answer for me is no. But JD, have y'all guys watched Dune Prophecy, Creature Commandos, or the Penguin series?
No, I still have to watch Dune 2. And I don't have a lot of time right now with all the stuff I have. I do want to watch Creature Commandos. I just need time. And I wasn't planning on watching the Penguin series at all. But I've heard so much good stuff about it. I just need the time. And realistically, I probably won't be able to touch it till summertime. But I do plan on watching both Creature Commandos and Penguin. Dune Prophecy, it depends. That's down the line. I mean, like, if I really like Dune 2, I might go back to it. But I'll be honest, I didn't really love Dune 1 all that much. I thought it was kind of boring.
I didn't see the original Dune, to be honest with you, so I haven't watched the new Dune. I haven't seen Dune 2, and I have not seen Dune Prophecy. I am interested in the Penguin series, and I was waiting for the series, the first season, to be over, and then I was going to give it a shot. And I was actually planning on watching it last night, but for some reason I pulled up Netflix first just to see what was on, and they have a crime docuseries called The Kings of Tupelo, where a conspiracy theorist set of brothers. Hold on. They're a set of brothers. One of them is a big time conspiracy theorist, and they're also Elvis impersonators. And one of them tries to kill Barack Obama, and it becomes a huge thing. So I'm in on this one. So one of the brothers tries to kill the president. It's a whole plot. He also thinks that his hospital that he was working at, where he was a janitor, was selling body parts off. And so he created all these. He said he created 40 different websites trying to sound the alarm about his hospital selling off body parts on an illegal body part exchange, like the black market. So that's kind of what I'm watching right now, is this Elvis impersonator talking about this shit. So that's kind of taking over. That's taking precedence right now.
I get it. That's that's so you. Like, that's awesome that you're watching that. It makes me so entertained.
Yeah, maybe I'll go witching hour about it, but down the road.
That's perfect. That's perfect, actually. I keep wanting to do more MLW content because I know I'm not gonna like it, and I really like picking on MLW sometimes. But I just don't understand.
JD, MLW did the funniest fucking thing of all time. Not of all time. They did something so funny. So they brought in Eric Bischoff, right? And I was like, I was kind of shitting on it.
Oh yeah.
But they brought in Eric Bischoff, and then on commentary, they brought him on, and he gave away the results from TNA that night. And I thought that was so hilarious. I was like, just kind of classic Bischoff giving away the results of the competitor, because they were going up against MLW was going head to head with Impact that night, and Bischoff came on and gave away the results, and it was so funny.
That is funny, actually. Kudos. Yeah. Well done, Court. That's a good one.
All right, guys, that's gonna do it for us this week on the Mike and JD show. Sorry we went on Sunday night. We'll be back in a regular time slot coming up this Thursday. Come hell or high water, we will have a show this coming up Thursday. Make sure you're a Patreon subscriber. Go to patreon.com/Mike and JD show. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're listening to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, leave a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate it. The more 5-star reviews we get, the bigger our Christmas bonus from Voices of Wrestling will be, which might actually just still be 0, but we'll try to get one. But all right, guys, that's it for us this week. Mahalo.
Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you brought your A game. A made no rain from the track when we unite and spit. This isn't A game, better bring your A game. Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you brought your A game.